Okay, it's great to see all of you again. I feel like it's been a while. Hasn't been, but just feels that way. I thought it would be fitting to share a little bit about our founder, Reverend Moon, who we call True Father. Since he passed away about 10 years ago, we just celebrated this 10th anniversary of his passing yesterday. It was a really nice program in Korea, really well put together production and music and plays. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to just talk a little bit about his legacy, because it is kind of a big deal. And I wanted to start off by just sharing some of his words from his autobiography. I think they kind of speak for themselves. It's a little bit long, so please just bear with me and try your best to really catch what there is for you in what he's sharing here. A true life is a life in which we abandon our private desires and live for the public good. This is a truth taught by all major religious leaders, past and present, East and West, whether it be Jesus, Buddha, or the Prophet Muhammad. It is a truth that is so widely known that sadly, it seems to have been devalued. The passage of time or changes in the world cannot diminish the value of this truth. This is because the essence of human life never changes, even in the midst of rapid change all around the world. The teacher with whom we have the closest relationship is our heart. Our heart is more precious to us than our closest friends, and even more precious than our parents. So, as we live our lives, we need periodically to ask our hearts, am I living a good life now? Anyone can hear his heart speaking to him. If a person hears the sound of his heart tearfully sobbing, then he needs to stop immediately whatever he is doing. Anything that makes the heart suffer will ruin him. Anything that makes the heart sad will eventually make the person fall into sadness. Just as love is not for our own sake, so happiness and peace are not for ourselves. Just as love can never exist without a partner, happiness and peace cannot exist without a partner. All these can exist only in the context of a relationship with a partner. Nothing can be accomplished if we love alone. We cannot be happy alone or speak of peace alone. Since a partner is what enables us to have happiness and peace, the partner is more important than we are. Today, people can expect to live about 80 years. 80 years of joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, and all the other emotions mixed together may seem like a long time. But if we take away the private time that a person spends sleeping, working, and eating, and then the time we spend talking, laughing, and having fun with family members and friends, attending weddings and funerals, and time spent lying sick in bed, only about 7 years will remain. A person may live 80 years, but only spend about 7 years living for the public good. Life is like a rubber band. The same 7 years given to two different people can either be spent as 7 years or as 70. Time by itself is empty. We need to put things in it. The same is true about a person's life. Everyone wants to live his life with a comfortable place to sleep and good things to eat. Eating and sleeping, however, are simply ways of letting time slip by. In the moment that a person has lived out his life and his body is laid to rest in the ground, all wealth and glory become nothing more than a bubble and disappear at once. Only the 7 years that he lived for the public good will remain and be remembered by posterity. Those 7 years are the trace that is left in the world of a life that lasted 80 years. We do not come into this world or depart from it of our own accord. We have no ability to make choices with regard to our fate. We are born, though we did not choose to be born. We live, though we did not choose to live. We die, though we do not choose to die. We have no authority over these aspects of our lives. So how can we boast that we are somehow better than others? We cannot be born by our own wish, possess things that will forever be our own, or avoid death. So any boasting on our part would only be pathetic. Even if we rise to a position higher than others, the honor is only temporary. If we gather more possessions than others, we must leave them all behind at the gates of death. Money, honor, and knowledge all flow away from us in time, and all disappear with the passing years. No matter how noble and great a person might be, His is nothing more than a pitiable life that will end the moment he loses hold of his lifeline. Do not live for yourself. You must live not for yourself, but for others. Not for your family, but for your neighbors. Not for your own country, but for the world. All sin in the world comes about when the individual is put first. Individual desires and ambitions harm a person's neighbors and ruin society at large. Everything in the world will eventually pass. The parents we love, the husband or wife we love, and the children we love will all pass away. All that remains with us at the end of our lives is death, and when a person dies, only his legacy remains. Please consider for a moment what you can do to show that you lived a life of value. The possessions and social position you have accumulated during your life will pass away from you. Once you cross the river of death, such things will have no meaning. Because we were born in love and lived our lives in love, love is also the only thing that remains with us when we are in our graves. We receive our lives in love, live by sharing love, and return into the midst of love. It is important that we live our lives in a way that we can leave a legacy of love behind us. So I don't know how that makes you feel to listen to words like this. I think it can be maybe reassuring. It could be encouraging. It could be inspiring. It could be judged. Yeah, you could feel a little bit judged or divided or depressed maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Whatever you maybe feel from it, maybe that there's something to be looked at there. But for me, I really value words like this. When we come together for church, there's many different opportunities for experience, right? Sometimes we can be uplifted and we can be encouraged and we can be reminded that we're all trying our best. Sometimes it's an opportunity for self-reflection, to recognize something in myself maybe that I'm not paying attention to. Maybe I haven't put enough emphasis on something that's very important that I'm not really doing. It's not a bad thing one way or the other. It's just an opportunity. And today is really an opportunity to really look at a man's life who lived those words, in my opinion, really lived those words to the fullest degree that he could. Sure, definitely much more than I could ever in my own life. And so I want to share a little bit about, Reverend Moon's legacy, just a little bit, because I don't feel like I know that much. But the little bit that I do know, I want to share and just talk a little bit about. Because I know that his life has touched so many people's lives, and it's affected world events and world leaders, and definitely my life. I am the person today that I am because of him. I know that I couldn't have the kind of family that I have. I wouldn't be the kind of husband and the kind of father that I am today without his teachings, without his influence in my life. They've showed us that what God has been doing and continues to do in this world, what his ultimate goal is for all his children, and how we can be a part of that in our own lives, and how everything must be eventually restored. He's given us a compass by which we can live our lives and a reason to be optimistic about life and the world, even though sometimes things seem a little bit discouraging. I really love the song that we used for the video, the second song. Yeah, Brighter Days. Yeah, thank you. I was drawing a blank there for some reason. I listen to that song a lot because sometimes life gets a little bit discouraging, or sometimes you see events and things happening in the world and it doesn't really seem that hopeful. Maybe sometimes it feels like we're going downhill, or sometimes things in the movement are not so encouraging. But I'm always I love that song, of course, not just because I want to be optimistic for the sake of being optimistic, but I also believe that God is doing something, and if things weren't destined to eventually get better, then what would be the point? But sometimes we just need to be reminded of that, because when things are difficult in the moment, it's hard to see that. It's hard to believe in it. And I think that realistically, when we look at True Father's life, it's easy to point at the things that he did that, we see as being very meaningful or successful, or like, oh yeah, that made a difference, or oh yeah, that was really good. But I think that, it's also easy to look at the many things that he did that didn't really work out that well. And many of the things that have really suffered. And it can be really easy to criticize. I know that there's many people who criticize him, and he just used people, or he just was a person who cared about money or something like that. But I remember one of the last times I saw him when he was alive, and just a handful of experiences I had with him, he came to Las Vegas. In the last few years of his life, he came to Las Vegas a lot, and he would hold a lot of events there. And I remember one time I was there for one of the events, and he was, I think, in his late 80s or early 90s at that point already. And I just saw him being wheelchaired down the hallway, of this grand casino. It was probably the Caesars Hotel or the Bellagio or something like that, your Ocean's 11 or whatever. And, really nice, really fancy. And he's being wheelchaired, and, he's just an old man at that point. At that point in his life, I think that most people should feel that they have the permission to retire, to take a break, to not work so hard. Especially somebody who I feel has already tried and done so much. And even when he got up to speak, he talked about how, or maybe, I don't remember how I found out about this. Maybe he said it, or maybe someone else said it. But he's when you get older, your blood circulation doesn't work so well. And so oftentimes the blood will collect in your legs. And you need to wear like special compression socks. And sometimes, people have to massage you just so that the blood flows correctly. Like simple things like that we take for granted when we're young, right? But like when you get older, you have to worry about those kind of things. And yet, even on with those kinds of issues, he was still pushing himself in his schedule to travel from place to place, speaking about the same things that he talks about in his autobiography, the same things that he's been talking about his entire life. He just never deviated from that. He never changed. Even until the last moments of his life, the last years of his life, he never stopped. And I witnessed that with my own two eyes, how this man, I really felt like, my God, I think he could stop. I think he could take a break. I think it's okay. But he was driven, and he wouldn't stop. And, I think the people who criticize him really need to take a look at that. I think that, being inspired by money and being inspired by power, I think that those things you start to forget about, they don't seem to be as valuable to you as you're entering the last few years of your life. Observationally speaking, I'm obviously not there yet. But I do remember when I used to really be interested in Steve Jobs, when, the founder of Apple and Pixar, and there's a autobiography or biography written about him. And I'm very fascinated by the lives of people who made a big impact on society. And, he's kind of a staunch atheist his whole life. But in the last few weeks of his life, he was like, I wonder if there is a God. He was kind of a little bit more open to it. I think that like concepts that we have or things that we're really attached to or feel are really, really important in our life, they start to kind of dissipate when we're not sure how much longer we have to live. And I just really respected him so much. Just from the small things that I could see, how he could start with nothing, not only nothing, but totally negative, coming up in a war-torn country and everything, and create such an amazing worldwide movement in his lifetime. We have problems, but, I tend to want to focus on the good. Even for ourselves, on our small level, we've had to really kind of come to the realization that one person's life or two people's lives, you can only do so much. Once you have certain ambition beyond just what you yourself can do in your life, you need other people. And you also need to be willing to let go of control a little bit. And that's been a really tough lesson for us because, especially for me, like I have a certain way I want things to be, and I have a certain way I want things to happen. But then I come face to face with the reality that, if I just do everything myself, I'm not going to be able to get much done. So we've had to really learn kind of the hard way, still learning, how important it is to rely on other people. But then when you do that, you kind of have to let go of things turning out the way you want them to turn out, or things going the way that you want them to go. And I mean, that's just in our small little life, in our small little community. I can't even imagine what that would be like on a macro level, on a world level, on a national level. And I think, some things didn't work out. Well, try to do some of the things that he's done, and we'll see how it goes. It's kind of the way I feel about it. He did many things in his life, too many things to share briefly about in this service, but from working to bring together politicians, religious leaders, clergy, scientists, martial artists, sports, relief for hunger, humanitarian causes, resolving world conflicts, especially religious ones, like those MEPI tours in the Middle East, bringing together the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians, to Ocean Providence, bringing together interracial marriages, Peace Road, an international conference for the unity of sciences and universal ballet. And that's just kind of like touching the surface. He wasn't just a humanitarian or a philanthropist. He also was a person who sought religious, spiritual truth. And just as important as the things he did were the things that he taught us and the questions that he answered. Like, what is the nature of God? Why did he create this world? Why did he create me and you? What was Jesus' true mission, and why did he have to come back again? Can religion and science ever truly be reconciled? And why does God allow suffering? If there is a goal of history, what is it? And what is the true nature of life after death? He taught us that fulfillment and happiness only come from living for others. We are one family under God, at least from God's point of view. The family is the building block of the kingdom of heaven. God has been working through all religions to eventually create a world where we don't need religion. A clearer understanding of the Bible and how it should be interpreted. God's relationship with us is that of a parent and a child. God's ultimate plan is to save all of his children, not just the some that prescribe to a specific belief. And he taught us that God grieves and suffers with humanity, and that he is working tirelessly from behind the scenes to bring us closer to him. These are things that, are controversial today. Many people, if you said some of these things to people, they would have a hard time to accept them. But we have to understand that even Jesus alluded to in the Bible of this new truth needing to be expressed someday. In John 16, he said, I have said this to you in figures. The hour is coming when I shall no longer speak to you in figures, but tell you plainly of the Father. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth, for he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. And the divine principle also talks about this from also some passages from the Bible. Due to the disbelief of the people of his time, Jesus died on the cross without being able to teach all that was in his heart. As he said, if I have told you earthly things and you do not believe, how can you believe if I tell you heavenly things? What is more, Jesus added, I have yet many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. Disclosing how sorrowful he was about the inability of even his closest disciples to receive all that he wanted to share. So Jesus passed away 2,000 years ago and yet still continues to touch people's lives today. His legacy endured even though his ministry was short and his followers were few. If we lived at the time of Christ, we probably wouldn't have followed him. because nobody really did at the end. But his legacy endures. So our true father, Reverend Moon, he passed away 10 years ago, and he accomplished so much in one short lifetime. His philosophy was to work harder than anyone else so that he could accomplish in 1 year what it might take another person a lifetime. He was a driven person, driven by his love for God, and often talked about getting only 2 hours of sleep each night, which was testified to by his attendants and security guards. He saw all the world's children as if they were his own, so we can learn a lot from his life. Even when he passed away at that age of 92, he was still working hard every day. And he didn't do it for recognition, money, or for himself. He was showing us the way to live, to pass on the torch to us, so that we could learn to live from his example and to think about and act on making a legacy for our own lives. Even if we can't expect to live a life like Christ or a life like, Reverend Moon. I think God puts special people into the world for a special purpose. But I do think that there are certain things that we can inherit from that. We can learn something. How maybe I could live my life in some small way. I can find some small thing I can really believe in, that I can really put my whole heart into, that would make a difference in this world, or make a difference for some people, and really pour my energy and heart into that. I think that that's kind of a legacy that our true father was trying to pass on to us. And I think, on a day like today, where we're recognizing his life 10 years later, it's something really worth thinking and pondering about. So that is my message. Thank you, and please join me in prayer. Good morning, dearest Heavenly Parent. We thank you so much for this day and all the brothers and sisters who are gathered here this morning, and many, many people all around the world who are taking this time to really discover you more deeply and to center our lives on you, and really reflect on how we can live a better life, how we can be in closer relationship with you, Heavenly Parent, how we can maybe align our week a little bit better, or make some healing happen in our lives that's so desperately needed. Pray, Heavenly Parent, that this time where we're able to come together, that you can really be here and touch each and every person through all this, the music and the message and the fellowship that we're able to have. I really pray, Heavenly Parent, that on this day, especially as we're really recognizing our founder's life and his lifestyle and his desire to just give everything to you and return everything to you, that we can inherit even like a tiny bit of that desire and a tiny bit of that heart of gratitude to want to give something back, even in the times when things are difficult, even when things are not going the way we want them to go, to always have the heart of gratitude and always have the heart to give back something and show it in our life. And I thank you, and I offer this prayer in your name and in our names. In my name, Michael Donny Hendrick, a Blessed Central family. Amen and Aju. Thank you.